The Grand Wexford Hotel had stood for nearly a century, its marble floors worn smooth by the footsteps of guests long gone. On a quiet Tuesday morning, the front desk bell chimed. Not because anyone had entered, but because a small, tarnished brass key slid across the polished counter as if pushed by invisible fingers. Eleanor, the young receptionist, froze. No one stood before her. The key had a faded red tag with one thing written in embossed gold. 6B. She frowned. The hotel's sixth floor ended at room 6A. She checked the blueprint during training. No such room existed. She called for Mr. Halpern, the night manager, who shuffled in with the weary gait of a man who'd worked there longer than the carpet had been laid. His face drained of color at the sight of the key. Without touching it, he muttered, "Put it back where you found it. And if you didn't find it, God help you." Eleanor asked what he meant, but Halpern just turned and walked away, faster than she'd ever seen him move. That night, as she closed the register, the brass key sat exactly where it had been left. But now, the tag was wet, as though it had been pulled from a pool of cold water. From somewhere above, faintly muffled by distance, came the sound of a door unlocking. The next morning, Eleanor arrived to find the other receptionists gathered in uneasy silence. Two night shift porters swore they had heard footsteps pacing overhead, on the sixth floor, long after the last guests had gone to bed. The Wexford's sixth floor was usually silent. A long hallway with just a handful of rooms, all empty that night. But the men claimed they'd heard dragging steps and faint, unintelligible murmurs. Eleanor climbed the grand staircase, determined to check for herself. The sixth floor smelled faintly of mildew, and the soft carpet muffled her own steps. At the far end, past 6A, the wall was bare, no door, no signage, just a section of wood paneling slightly darker than the rest. She pressed her ear against it. First, nothing. Then, so faint she thought she imagined it. Two voices whispering. One male, low and urgent. The other, female, trembling, almost pleading. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, startling her. She glanced at the screen. Unknown number. She answered, whispering, "Hello." A woman's voice, raw and wet like it came through water, said, "You have the key. Don't open it." Before Eleanor could speak, the call cut. The hall was empty again except for the key. It now lay on the carpet at her feet. From behind the paneling came 3 slow knocks. Eleanor gripped the brass key so tightly her palm ached. She wanted to run, but curiosity rooted her in place. She didn't knock back. Instead, she stepped away and nearly collided with Mr. Halpern. He must have followed her upstairs. His usual calm demeanor was gone. His face was pale, his hands trembling as he reached for the key. "You shouldn't have this," he whispered. Room 6B was sealed 50 years ago for a reason. Eleanor pressed him for details, but Halpern hesitated. Finally, with a glance down the hallway to ensure no one else was listening, he told her the story. In 1973, a businessman named Charles Rayner checked into 6B with his young wife. 2 days later, a guest in the next room complained of constant arguing, loud enough to hear through the walls. On the third night, the noise stopped, and no one ever saw the couple leave. Housekeeping found the room locked from the inside. When they finally forced it open, it was empty, perfectly neat, no luggage, no personal items. Only a half-drunk glass of wine on the nightstand, and 2 wet footprints leading to the window, which was locked from within. "They closed it off the next morning," Halpern said, his voice dropping lower. "Every few years, someone tries to open it. They regret it." Before Eleanor could respond, the lights above them flickered, and from behind the wall came a faint, echoing whisper, "50 years is long enough." That afternoon, Eleanor couldn't shake the whisper from her mind. She decided to check the hotel's old registry, tucked away in a dusty filing room in the basement. The air down there was cold, unnaturally cold, like stepping into a cellar in midwinter. The thick leather-bound ledger smelled of mold and forgotten years. She flipped past decades of check-ins until her finger stopped on August 17, 1973. There it was, Charles Rayner, Mrs. Rayner, room 6B. The page looked warped, as though it had been splashed with water long ago. She kept turning, looking for closure. But something was wrong. In last night's section, dated exactly 50 years later, the final entry sent a chill down her spine. Charles Rayner, room 6B. Her hands shook. It had the same looping handwriting as the original, right down to the precise slant of the R. But no one had been at the desk to write it. Eleanor ran upstairs. At the end of the 6th-floor corridor, the dark paneling now stood slightly ajar, just enough to show a thin, black seam. And there, screwed into the wall beside it, was a brand-new brass number plate. 6B. From inside came the faint sound of water dripping, and then a man's voice, deep and calm. "I've been expecting you." Eleanor's heart raced. She patted her pockets, empty. The brass key was gone. The polished metal felt impossibly warm in her memory, almost pulsing. Panic surged, but so did curiosity. If someone or something wanted her to open the room, she wouldn't back down. She fetched the maintenance toolkit from the basement, shaking as she did. The old iron lock on the panel didn't resist much. Decades of neglect made it brittle. With one decisive turn of the wrench, the mechanism gave way with a shrill metallic snap. The panel creaked open slowly, revealing a room frozen in time. Dust motes floated in the air, lit by a single streak of sunlight through a streaked window. Everything inside was meticulously arranged. A floral armchair, a lacquered writing desk, a half-full glass of wine still on its coaster. Eleanor stepped in, the floorboards groaning under her weight. On the wall opposite, a large mirror reflected not her own image, but the faint outline of a couple, dressed in the faded style of the 1970s. Standing hand in hand, their faces pale and expressionless. A cold draft whipped through the room, carrying whispers that seemed to swirl from every corner. Eleanor's pulse raced as she backed toward the door. The couple in the mirror didn't move, but their mouths opened in perfect unison. "Welcome, we've been waiting." The door slammed shut behind her. Eleanor's eyes darted around the room, trying to make sense of what she was seeing. The furniture, the wallpaper, even the small trinkets on the shelves looked untouched for decades, as if someone had pressed a pause button in 1973. A thick layer of dust covered everything. But oddly, the wine glass on the nightstand gleamed as if freshly polished. She stepped closer, her reflection still absent from the mirror. Instead, the ghostly couple remained, staring silently. The air grew heavier with each breath, carrying a faint scent of perfume mixed with the tang of old wood. Her fingers traced the edge of the writing desk, and she found a folded photograph tucked underneath. Unfolding it, she froze. The image was of the Rayners smiling warmly, except in the background, behind them, was a figure Eleanor knew all too well, herself standing exactly where she was now, eyes wide, hand clutching a key. A sudden knock on the wall behind her made her spin. The sound echoed unnaturally, as if the room itself were alive. Then a whisper, low and urgent. "You shouldn't have come." Eleanor stumbled backward, her mind racing. Every instinct screamed to leave, but her legs refused to move. She realized something terrifying. This room didn't just preserve the past. It was waiting, shaping reality, and somehow, it had already woven her into its story. Eleanor's hands trembled as she picked up the photograph again. The smiling faces of the Rayners stared back, frozen in time. But the background had changed. A shadowy figure now lurked near the edge. A man in a long coat, hat pulled low, eyes glinting with intent. Her heart skipped. She recognized him instantly. It was the man who had delivered the key to the front desk earlier, though she had never seen his face clearly. In the photo, he moved closer, as though emerging from another era entirely. The temperature in the room plummeted. Frost formed along the window edges, curling like tiny, sinister fingers. Eleanor felt a presence behind her, heavy and suffocating. The mirror rippled, and the Rayner's smiles faded into expressions of horror. The whispering grew louder, overlapping into a chaotic chorus of voices. "You shouldn't be here. Leave now, or stay forever." Eleanor turned, hoping to flee, but the room seemed to stretch endlessly. The doorway she had entered through was gone, replaced by a solid wall of dark wood. Her eyes returned to the photograph, and the shadowed figure had moved closer, now standing behind her, though the photo remained in her hands. A metallic voice murmured, almost playful, "You found me. Now it's your turn." A sudden gust slammed the window shut, and the lights flickered violently. Eleanor sank onto the floral armchair, shivering despite the heavy blankets she wrapped around herself. The room hummed with a low, constant vibration, like a heartbeat syncing with her own. Shadows pooled in corners, stretching and twisting unnaturally, as if they had minds of their own. She tried to keep her thoughts grounded. She wasn't here by accident. This was a test, a trap, or something in between. The Rayner's reflections in the mirror now stood apart from one another, staring straight at her, their eyes filled with silent warnings. Hours passed. The whispers never stopped, a chorus of pleading, accusing, and menacing tones. Every time Eleanor blinked, the room seemed to shift slightly, the bed closer, the desk farther away, the photograph on the floor inching toward her. Suddenly, the metallic voice returned, echoing around the room. "It's time." The mirror rippled like water, and a hand emerged from its surface, pale, skeletal, but unmistakably human. Eleanor froze, her mind screaming at her to move. Behind her, the Rayners in the mirror began to fade, leaving only her reflection, and the hand reaching through, as if to pull her into the glass. Eleanor's pulse pounded. She realized this was no ordinary room, no simple haunting. Something or someone wanted to cross over, and she was the key. The sound came suddenly, 3 sharp, deliberate knocks echoing from the mirror itself. Eleanor's blood ran cold. Her reflection stared back, wide-eyed, but her body refused to move. The hand that had emerged from the glass hovered inches from her chest, trembling slightly as if testing its grip. Then a voice, unmistakably Charles Rayner's, but distorted, warped through the room. "It's your turn to join us." Eleanor backed away, tripping over the armchair. The photograph slipped from her hands, fluttering to the floor. She scrambled to pick it up, but the shadowed figure from the photo now appeared in the corner of the room, tall, silent, watching. Its presence pressed down on her like a physical weight, cold and unyielding. The mirror rippled again, and suddenly the room around her blurred. The walls melted into darkness, the furniture stretching and twisting. The whispers combined into one deafening chorus, each word overlapping the next. "Stay, stay, stay." Desperate, Eleanor lunged toward the doorway she remembered, only to collide with solid wood. The key. It was lying on the desk again, glimmering faintly. She grabbed it, thinking perhaps she could undo what she had done. But the moment her fingers touched the brass, the hand shot out from the mirror and grabbed her wrist with impossible strength. Her scream echoed through the room, swallowed by the darkness. Eleanor's heart raced as the mirror pulled her closer. Her fingers clawed at the cold glass, the brass key slipping from her grasp and clattering to the floor. The reflection no longer mimicked her movements. It moved independently, smiling with the Rayners' frozen faces behind it. Time seemed to stretch. The whispers turned into wails, and shadows swirled around her like living smoke. Then, just as abruptly, the pull stopped. Eleanor stumbled backward, gasping, finding herself alone in the room. The mirror now reflected only the empty space she occupied. On the desk lay the photograph. She picked it up carefully. The smiling Rayners were gone. In their place was a single inscription, scrawled across the glossy paper in handwriting that matched hers. "Vacancy forever." The key, once warm, now lay cold and inert beside it. Eleanor's reflection in the mirror blinked slowly, as if it remembered more than she did. The doorway returned, but something intangible lingered, a sense that she had not truly left. She ran down the hall, the echo of her footsteps swallowed by the hotel's oppressive silence. Room 6B remained locked once more, its secret safe, yet alive in the shadows. And somewhere, just beyond the reflection, a whisper followed her. "We'll see you again. Some doors are never meant to be opened, and some keys are never meant to be found."